GameDev Journey. Hey everyone, it's Rob here from GameDev Journey. Welcome to the second video in my series creating a top-down tank battle game in Godot. Growing a YouTube channel takes a lot of time and effort, so please consider supporting me by liking the video and subscribing for more content like this. And now, on to the tutorial. Welcome back to my top-down tanks tutorial. It's good to have you with me. In this episode, we're going to draw our level using a tile map, attach a camera to our player tank to follow him around, and set the boundaries or limits of the camera so that we can't scroll beyond the end of the level. Let's get started by creating a new scene, and let's call it Level 1. Now let's add a TileMap node to our scene, and let's call it the ground. You'll notice the tile set is empty, so grab the terrain tiles resource and drop it in to the tile map. Now we have a whole lot of tiles we can use to paint our level. Let's scroll out so that we can see. We can paint our level much bigger than the viewport because we're going to add a camera to follow the player around, and we'll be able to see where he's going. Let's have a look at what we can do. Let's keep it nice and simple, and let's start by painting some green grass on the side. And grab some sand for the other side. There we go. Left click paints and right click deletes. So if you make any mistakes, you can just undo it with your right click, as I will do here. There we go. Let's find a join between the grass and the sand and put that in over there. Maybe not. Maybe we'll get something a little bit better. Here we go. Let's take the van and put this in the middle. Look a little bit better, and let's just draw some roads. I'll just grab a road coming through. Let's just set the size of this tile map. 128 by 128. Let's zoom out. Redo our grass. And our sand. Okay, let's fix the road. Grab. Let's grab some sandy roads. Fix that there. And down in there. Go around. Well, actually, let's go up a bit before we curve. We can curve. And let's do that. Okay, but really you could just paint away and do anything you like. But I'm not going to spend too much time making the map. That's not really what we're not here to learn level design. So let's now save this. Let's create a folder called levels, and let's we'll keep it as level 1, save. Okay, we've got it done. Now let's add our player to this scene, and there's our tank over there. I zoom in, you can see him there, and if we preview the scene, you'll see that I can only see a little bit of the screen, and I can go off, but there's no camera, so nothing follows him. So we need the camera to scroll with him. So let's attach a camera to our player. So let's go back to our player scene by clicking on this little button here. There's our player scene, and let's add a camera 2D to the player. Let's select it to current is on, and let's zoom out a little bit. So if we go 1.4 on the X and let's actually try 1.5 actually. So we've zoomed away a little bit from the camera, and now let's save this scene, go back to our level, and now let's retest. So if we run again, now the camera is moving with us. Okay, and it's scrolling around with us nicely, and we can drive along and move around our map. The only problem is, notice how the camera scrolls everywhere. We want to limit it so that the camera cannot scroll beyond the edge of our little map or level that we've drawn. So we'll have to do that using a script so that you can see how this works. Because if I just go back to the player, for instance, here for a second, here you can see this is the camera over here. So let's just make sure that everything moves as a group. So there we go. So if I take this, if I select the camera now and move it, you'll notice how it scrolls everywhere with the player. Okay? But if I go to the camera, we go to its limits, and if we set the left limit to 0 and the top to 0, okay, and now we select the player again and we move, you'll see the camera can't go above the top line and it can't go any further left. Okay, it can move all around here, but top and left are now limited. So that's what we want to do, but we want to limit it so that it is limited according to the size of the map that we've drawn. So we're going to go back to our level over here. We're going to add a script to level. And this script will apply to every level. So we're just going to call it level instead of level 1. And so here we are now in our level 1 script. So now let's set up the limits of that camera. So in our function, in our ready function, we need to find, we need to call a method called set camera limits. So let's say set camera boundary or limits, whatever you want to call it. And then we need to define that function. So we'll say set camera limits, and now we'll define it. So now we need to find out how big the map is. So we'll find out, we'll say var map size, okay, and that will be, we'll get that by going to our tile map, which is called ground, and we'll get the used rectangle. So that is the size of the rectangle that we drew for the ground. Then we need to find out how big is each tile on that rectangle. So we'll say, let's call it cell size. And that's going to be, we'll also get this from the tile map. So we'll say ground dot cell size. Okay, now we know the size of the map and we know the size of each cell in the map. So now we can say, we can go to our player camera and set the limits on the left and the right and the top and the bottom. So we can say camera 2D dot limit left, all right, will be equal to our map size position x times our cell size x, and then we'll say player camera 2D dot limit right will be our map size end of the map, which is the far right hand, x, multiplied by our cell size x. Now we'll do the top and bottom. So we'll go player camera 2D dot limit top. It's going to be equal to our map size dot position y multiplied by our cell size y, and our player camera 2D dot limit bottom will be our map size end dot y multiplied by our cell size y. All right, that should do it. Let's save that. And now let's preview the scene again and have a look at how our scrolling works now. So now we should not be able to see those gray areas where we haven't drawn. We can scroll off. We could also clamp our player into the scene that way, but at least now the camera doesn't show you the edges or the ends of the map. And we can also drive nicely, reach the end of the road, and we cannot see beyond, so that would be the end. My feeling is, if you want to limit the movement of the player, either we use clamp and we clamp him to the limits of the camera, or we just put a wall around the map so that they can't leave the level. Those would be two options. Alright, but thanks very much for joining me. I'll see you again in our next episode.